going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is the 1 month review of the new X CrazyFast Plus in this absolutely crazy fast colorway. So let's start straight away with the sole plate of this football boot. Now, you guys know this is the same construction that's been on the Speed Portal series for now almost a year and a half now. And this is an awesome sole plate. It's one of my favorite on the market. I've really enjoyed wearing it in the 99-gram leather football boots, those kind of remakes that they made. This is the same sole plate, obviously minus the carbon fiber. So it got the aero plate in here as well, but I would say that this has a really rockin' amount of responsiveness and snapback as well. So even though it isn't a carbon fiber base plate anymore, it still gives you an awesome amount of snapback. I think this traction is just aggressive enough where some people might think that it's not super great for AG pitches. I tend to disagree. I think this is the perfect amount of aggressiveness for FG for sure, and then AG pitches if you are somebody who wants to wear the same pair of football boots on AG as well. So for me, you guys know from a speed boot perspective, this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, style of sole plate. It's probably my favorite design of sole plate, and so for me this is going to get an 8.5 out of 10 for sole plate. The heel area of this football boot is super nice, and I would say that there are a few things that I want to talk about that are asterisks to that, but this is a great upgrade in my opinion from even the 0.1 and the LL version of these. You guys will see 1 month reviews hopefully in the next month or so. I've been a little bit behind because of my game schedule, but I actually like this heel construction a lot better than I did both of the Speed Portal models, and this is a lot more similar, I would say, to the Speed Flow heel area, which was, in my opinion, a little bit better. But for me, the suede lining, the way that they made this heel area a little bit more adjustable to more foot shapes, and the padding isn't as aggressive as it is on the 0.1 or the 0.1L laceless model of this new CrazyFast line. And I just think that this is a nice heel area. That being said, I do have a little bit of slippage. That could be because the shape of the heel area is a little bit too wide for my foot, so I get a little bit of lateral back and forth. When I cut really hard, I get a little bit of lateral slippage. That could be because sometimes I don't wear grip socks, and that's what affects it. I would say, though, that it's very minor, and so for me, it's only going to get knocked down a couple points for that, just because I think the heel area is super comfy, but it does lack a little bit for me and for my foot shape and my heel shape as far as lockdown in that heel goes. So for me, this is going to get a 7.5 out of 10 for the heel area. The upper on the CrazyFast Plus is really nice, and I would say that this is one of, if not the thinnest uppers I've ever tried. I know that there are some Evo Speeds in the past that have been about this thin. There are some other older F50s that have been this thin. I do have a pair of those 2010 remake F50s that have the Carbitex insert on the inside, and that upper is super thin as well. But for whatever reason, the sensation of this textile, kind of textile based upper that's so thin just feels even thinner than those. The Aeropacity Speed Skin Plus upper is pretty remarkable as far as what they're able to do with how thin this is and how soft it is straight out of the box. I do think because it is a synthetic and it is so thin, it almost acts like paper in a sense. So I tend to prefer, generally speaking, knit and leather football boots over synthetic football boots because they just wrap and mold to the shape of your foot as opposed to having sort of a predetermined shape that then bows and kind of gets a little bit of weird crease points around your football boot like this one does. But I would say overall this does a fantastic job given how thin it is. And so for me, this upper is probably one of the most impressive on the market just as far as how thin it is. And so for me, it's going to get an 8 out of 10. Lockdown of this football boot is pretty good. I would say it's about average. The aero cage on the inside that you can see here, like those yellow little I guess kind of suede cage material actually does a really nice job of wrapping your foot. We see that technology in a lot of different football boots nowadays, especially as the uppers start to get thinner and thinner. We see more emphasis on the robustness and the strength of those internal cage technologies. And for me, this Aero Cage Plus does a pretty good job of wrapping your foot, making sure that you do stay in there. But I will say again, because the upper just in general, even with that aero cage, is so dang thin, kind of lacks a little bit as far as the most like aggressive lockdown. For instance, if you compare this to something even like the 0.1, the regular laced version of the CrazyFast, I would say that one has better lockdown because it's a little bit of a more robust upper. And so the more robust upper with that speed cage in it, or with that, that aero cage in the inside, adds just a little bit more kind of performance benefits, and that's probably why you see more pros wearing that football boot as opposed to this one, even though this one is more expensive, you know, lighter weighted, if you will, and it's a little more like high tech. And so that's, I think, in my opinion, that would be why more pros prefer that just 0.1 model as opposed to this one. But for me, the lockdown is going to get a 7.5 out of 10. Break-in time for the CrazyFast Plus was pretty good. I would say actually a little bit better than a lot of other speed boots on the market. Unfortunately, because my foot is a lot wider, they don't make a lot of wide fit football boots that are also speed boots. There are maybe 1 or 2 exceptions to that on the market, and all of them are remakes from past models. And so for me, the break-in time I think is going to be actually pretty good for most people. Because of how thin this upper is, it's really just going to mold to whatever shape of foot goes in there. I would say if you have a more wide midfoot, you're going to have a little bit of break-in time similar to what I did, but it's not going to be overkill. It hurts a little bit, but you can, because of the normal U-throat construction of this football boot, you're going to get a pretty good amount of adjustability, and it does have a fairly wide toe box area as well, with a little bit of extra volume. So for me, it just gave me a little bit of extra wiggle room to kind of push into the front of that football boot so that the midfoot wasn't absolutely getting crushed like it does more often than not on the 0.1 model of this, which, as I said before, has a little bit more robust of an upper. And so for most people, I think these are going to be great. For me, the lockdown is the break-in time is a 7 out of 10. Durability and build quality of this football boot is where it really struggles. So if you can see here, that is after like 2 hours of playtime, and that's a pretty fat little crease. Maybe that's a defect, maybe that's just this football boot. It hasn't happened on the left side and the left shoe, but for me, this, along with a lot of the sole plate kind of getting screwed up and discolored, and just the way that this upper is so thin, I can imagine somebody who wears these on a regular basis and doesn't wear other football boots or doesn't have a rotation of other football boots would blow through these. Similar, I wouldn't say maybe as crazy poor durability as like a Hypervenom 1. I got through like 7 pairs of those in one season in college, and this isn't quite that bad, but I would say it's pretty poor as far as durability and build quality. That's also maybe why more pros are preferring the regular 0.1, because they don't want to break football boots so often. But I would say this is like definitely a step or two above those Puma Evo Speed SLs that had the little sticker on the bottom that said, these will only last 11 games or whatever it was. Like, you should only wear these for game material. Like, these are kind of close to that, I would say, as far as like how thin these are. But I would definitely, if you're somebody who's like, I need a single pair of football boots for an entire season, unfortunately, I don't know if I'd recommend these just because they're so thin, and I just think people are gonna blow through these, especially if they play on AG pitches like this. They're just gonna trash them like I did here in that forefoot area. So for me, these are gonna get a 5 out of 10 rating for durability and build quality. Shape and fit of this football boot is fine, I would say. It's a little bit below average for my foot shape, just because of the way, as I said before, this upper very much acts like a thick piece of paper. And so as opposed to molding around your foot like a knit material or a leather material does, this kind of has little creases and stuff all over the football boot, even though the sole plate, I would say, fits the relative shape of my foot pretty well. It's just the upper material, especially here in the midfoot and around the lacing system, that just struggles a little bit. So for, I think, most people who have a standard fit, standard width foot, you're going to fit really well in these, I think, and you'd fit well in the other models of this top end line of the CrazyFast. But I do think that for wider foot types, maybe not the best shape and fit. So for my foot type, shape and fit is going to get a 6 out of 10 rating. So competition for the CrazyFast Plus, you've got, as I said before, the 0.1 and the LL of the same CrazyFast top end line from Adidas. You've got the Ultra Ultimate, you've got the new Razor from Skechers, which I have yet to try. They're on the way now, so hopefully I'm very, very excited to get those in hand and start to review those. And then you've got, I guess, the ASICS DS Lite, Morelia Neo 4 and Neo 4 Beta, Mizuno Alpha. You've got a lot of speed boots nowadays that are like in that speed boot market. And then of course the Vapor 15 Superfly 9. I would say that these, for my foot shape, I would rather wear these than a lot of other stuff on the market, simply because they just fit a little bit well, like a little bit better than a lot of other stuff. I think if you're talking objective performance as a speed boot, I would say that honestly, the 0.1, the regular laced version of these, is probably going to perform better because it's got a little bit better lockdown. It's got a little bit more robust upper and stuff. But I would say that overall the Vapor is, or the Alpha is probably top dog. Those are excellent, excellent, excellent football boots. I would say that ASICS DS Lite is my favorite. If you can consider it a speed boot, I would say I would always recommend Mizuno products, ASICS products to anybody. I think those are kind of top dog as far as like durability, build quality goes. But let's just take the top three, biggest brands, if you will, not top brands, but the three biggest brands: Nike, Adidas, Puma. I would say top dog is probably Vapor, then you have the 0.1, then you have these, then you have the laceless model of these, then you have the Ultra Ultimate. The Ultra Ultimate's, it's dog shit, honestly. I'm gonna say it. It's dog shit. It's really bad. It's just not good. Poor shape, poor build. It's really stiff. Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. So anyway, these are middle of the pack, which is pretty good, especially for like a high-end race track spike boot, which is cool. Performance of the CrazyFast Plus is average, I would say. Yes, it's super high tech. Yes, it's got some really cool features. Yes, the Aeropacity Speedskin Plus is super comfortable overall, even if it does have those little like bowing sensations to it. It's got a crazy thin barefoot touch on the ball. Like if you want a barefoot feel and touch on the ball, this is the football boot you buy 100%. These are by far probably the most barefoot sensation feeling football boots on the market that I've tried. Maybe something else is out there that is more barefoot than this, but for me, this synthetic is so dumb thin. I just think it is a really cool sensation. So if you are somebody who is on the market for the absolute thinnest football boot you can possibly find, buy these for sure. If you're somebody who wants this exact kind of shape and fit and feel, but you want something that's gonna maybe last a little bit longer, a little more robust, just buy the laced model of the 0.1. I think the 0.1 laced model is much, much better in this generation than it was in the previous generation, even though I don't fit in it quite as well. I think it's a great option for you. But for me, the overall rating, or excuse me, the performance rating of this football boot, just again, given some of the slippages in the heel, some of the creasing on the upper, and some of the durability issues, is going to get a 7.5 out of 10. Overall, the CrazyFast is a really cool concept. I really actually like that Adidas went, okay, we have the laced model and the laceless model of our top end. Let's try to make the most extreme raw speed boot we can find, and that is this football boot. And I think they've done a really good job. Obviously, it's a really cool looking silo, so I imagine that it's going to get some awesome colorways over the course of the next year and a half of its lifespan. I hope they continue doing this. I think that if Nike were to do something like that, it would be super cool. Maybe they consider their Vapor like this, basically. But I think for Adidas to go, hey, we created a really cool laceless speed boot. We've created a really cool new laced speed boot of a very similar variety, and they're really similar, those two, the 0.1 and the 0.1 LL. Let's create just the most raw and crazy. And yeah, maybe it's a little more expensive, but it is a very unique sensation that you don't get in speed boots anymore. And that is just this mega thin, paper thin upper with a very nice responsive speed frame, and then of course the heel area that is pretty comfortable straight out of the box, so no complaints there. So for me, overall though, Again, it's gonna get knocked down some points, I know. I've just given it like a whole speech, but it's gonna get a 7.5 out of 10. And I just think that 7.5 out of 10, it's average for me. It's just not what I'm looking for, and so for that reason, it's gonna get an average rating. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. First link down in the description box below is for my new game analysis service. That is where I take your footage and then I do exactly what I do for my stuff, plus a little bit of extra for your footage, send it back as a full production video with some notes at the end about what you can improve on, what are the things that I think you can really exploit because you're already really good at them, and of course how to maybe take the next step in your career as well. As always, be awesome, take care, I'll see y'all in the next video.